Tonight, a leadership shakeup. The president is sending border czar Tom Homan to Minnesota and calling back his Border Patrol chief, Greg Bovino. Then the fight in Congress over DHS funding as the country moves closer to another government shutdown this week. Plus, Minnesota's most powerful business leaders call for an immediate de-escalation of tensions, while the business community is finally speaking out as the 11th hour gets underway on this Monday night. Good evening once again. I am Stephanie Rule, and we are now 280 days away from the midterms. It has been 2 long and emotional days since ICU nurse Alex Preddy was shot and killed by federal immigration agents. Another vigil was held in his honor in Minnesota tonight. As we begin to see the power behind we the people, the outrage over that shooting has forced the Trump team to dial back the rhetoric and possibly the action. President Trump spoke to both Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey earlier today. According to Frey, Trump said he will pull some federal agents out of the state as early as tomorrow. On social media, the president called the phone calls, quote, very good. That is a massive change from his relentless attacks on these 2 men over the last few weeks. Another change, Trump says he is sending border czar Tom Homan to Minnesota, and he is set to meet with Mayor Frey tomorrow. Meanwhile, Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino, the guy who has been on the scene all over the media, is expected to be removed from Minnesota as early as tomorrow, according to 2 officials briefed on the matter. A separate source told MS Now that he is not just being taken out of Minnesota, he is being removed from his role as Border Patrol Commander at large. DHS is denying that report, saying he has not been relieved from his duties. Yesterday, Bovino was on TV. They put him out facing the public, said that the victims in the situation were the federal agents, the very agents who shot and killed Alex Preddy. And we have heard a very different tone today from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Watch this.
Secretary Noem said Alex Preddy committed an act of domestic terrorism. Stephen Miller labeled Preddy a domestic terrorist. Does the president agree with them?
Look, as I've said, I have not heard the president characterize Mr. Preddy in that way.
Will Stephen Miller be apologizing to the family of Alex Preddy for calling him, quotes, an assassin who tried to murder federal agents, despite the fact that, as you say, this is still under investigation?
Look, again, this incident remains under investigation, and nobody here at the White House, including the President of the United States, wants to see Americans hurt or killed and losing their lives in American streets.
And the legal battles in Minnesota continue to ramp up. Today, a judge heard arguments in the state's lawsuit to force ICE to leave. She has not issued a ruling yet. But I just want to level set for a moment. I want to think again about why the administration is committing this massive surge of agents into the state of Minnesota in the first place. Because this state does not have a surge or a huge population of undocumented immigrants. According to a Pew estimate, in 2023, Minnesota has about 130,000 undocumented immigrants. They make up about 2.2% of the state's population. But let's compare that. I don't know, compare it to Texas, which has over 2 million undocumented immigrants. There they make up 6.6% of the population. Of course, there's another key difference between the two. Minnesota voted against Donald Trump 3 times, and Texas voted for Donald Trump 3 times. Is that a coincidence? You can decide. All right, let's get smarter with the help of our leadoff panel this evening. Kayla Gardner joins us, MS Now White House correspondent, Susan Glasser, staff writer for The New Yorker, and Barb McQuaid, a veteran federal prosecutor and former U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan. Kayla, take all of this together. Just how big of a change is this from the White House, even in the last 24 hours, right? I did a television broadcast last night, and we were looking at soundbite after soundbite of Greg Bovino, the most senior person they put out on national TV to talk about the situation. When he was done talking on TV, he was all over social media, and now, poof, he's gone.
Stephanie, it has been a remarkable change of tone in the last 24 hours from the president on down, starting with the fact that Emmis now has confirmed that Greg Bavino will be or should be leaving as soon as tomorrow, along with some of the approximately 3,000 DHS agents that are in Minneapolis right now. President Trump also spoke with Governor Walz today. This is the first time he has done that since we've seen the escalation in protests, starting with the killing of Renee Good. He's described his conversation as positive, said that him and Walz are even on the same wavelength, which is just really remarkable to hear, given the fact that they have consistently attacked both Walz and Mayor Frey, who the president also spoke with today. But I think the most notable shift is how the White House is talking about the facts and the circumstances around this shooting. They said today they want to see this investigation play out, but you had DHS Secretary saying that Alex Preddy was engaging in domestic terrorism. You had White House advisor Stephen Miller saying that he was a, quote, would-be assassin. And President Trump even fed into some of these narratives that he was an agitator, posting on True Social on Saturday a photo of his gun and saying, what is this about? Suggesting, that it was a loaded gun with full magazines. But even before the killing of Renee Good, we have seen in polling that Americans are increasingly uncomfortable with immigration enforcement. Yes, they are happy with the fact that the border is quote unquote closed, that they want to see, violent criminals deported, but they are increasingly seeing the images that we've reported on our network so much of people being deported in their front yards, people being confronted in school parking lots. And the White House is certainly starting to see that. And it feels that their political acknowledgement of what is happening has started to catch up with them today. And the fact that we could be looking at another government funding shutdown yet again at the end of this week. So they are starting to take into account the political ramifications of all the images that we're seeing when it comes to immigration enforcement.
Lawrence O'Donnell just exposed something on MSNBC that has Trump's legal team scrambling in absolute panic mode. And what he revealed changes everything we thought we knew about the former president's latest courtroom disaster. While mainstream media outlets dance around the implications, O'Donnell laid out a constitutional crisis so severe that legal scholars are calling it the most dangerous moment for American democracy since Watergate. But here's what nobody else is telling you about what really happened behind those courtroom doors. O'Donnell didn't hold back during his Tuesday night broadcast when he walked through the timeline of events that led to what he called the complete meltdown of Trump's legal strategy. According to O'Donnell's analysis of newly released court filings, Trump's attorneys made a catastrophic miscalculation that has now put their client in an exponentially worse position than where he started. The documents show that Trump's legal team explicitly advised him against certain courtroom behavior, but he ignored every single warning they gave him. Legal experts who reviewed the filings told MSNBC that this creates a potential attorney-client privilege nightmare that could expose communications previously protected under law. But here's where it gets truly explosive. O'Donnell revealed that federal prosecutors have obtained evidence showing Trump's legal team knew weeks in advance that their client planned to defy basic courtroom protocols, yet they never informed the court about their client's intentions. Former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner told O'Donnell that this failure to notify the court could constitute a breach of attorneys' officers of the court responsibilities, potentially exposing Trump's lawyers to professional sanctions or even disbarment proceedings. The implications are staggering because it means Trump's own legal team might have facilitated courtroom conduct they knew violated federal rules. O'Donnell then dropped the bombshell that has Trump's inner circle in complete disarray. Sources close to the legal team told MSNBC that at least 2 senior attorneys on Trump's defense team are now considering withdrawing from the case entirely, citing irreconcilable differences with their client over trial strategy and courtroom behavior. This would leave Trump scrambling to find replacement counsel just weeks before critical pretrial motions are due, and federal judges rarely grant continuances for defendants who drive away their own lawyers through uncooperative behavior. Constitutional law professor Lawrence Tribe appeared on O'Donnell's show and explained that Trump is now facing a legal perfect storm entirely of his own making, where his courtroom defiance has transformed what might have been manageable legal challenges into an existential threat to his freedom. What O'Donnell exposed next reveals why Trump's team is in full meltdown mode, and why this situation is far worse than anyone outside the courtroom realizes.